Welcome back to this week's episode of Mystery Garage. In today's episode, the one we've all been waiting for, we finally put things aside and get to work on building the ABF. Stay tuned. Welcome back to this week's episode. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Each and every Wednesday on this channel, we release a new episode where we get to work on projects just like these. So if this is something that interests you, I highly recommend that you subscribe to this channel and to show your support by tapping that like button. This helps the YouTube algorithm get these episodes in front of even more Volkswagen enthusiasts just like us. So in today's episode, we're gonna hop into this ABF build, and we're gonna get to work. There is one pending catch though. I still haven't received that box I'm looking for, but I didn't want to push this build off any longer. I thought, you know what, we're just gonna get done what we can do. So today we're gonna build the short block of this engine because that I can do. The part I'm waiting for actually is the timing belt. Unfortunately in North America, because the ABF wasn't an option for us, getting a hold of that timing belt is a pretty big challenge. There are vendors that have them. I did order one obviously, but it's actually weird story enough is it got shipped and it says on my tracking that the item was delivered. Actual fact of the matter is I never received the product, so I had to go challenge it with our post, and what turns out to happen is the mail carrier said they delivered it to the wrong address. So right now I'm waiting on to find out what happens. I'm hoping that the insurance is going to cover the order and I can just reorder the belt. But in the meantime, while we get all that figured out, obviously the belt doesn't cost a lot of money, but I don't need two belts at the same time. So we'll see what happens with that. But I'm going to carry on with this build. We're going to get to work today and make sure that we get this short block basically built. So let's take a look at it. So last time we looked at this motor, I was waiting on receiving some parts. So I quickly took the ABA bottom end and the 16 valve head, just put them together and wrap them up for storage. Now we've received those parts, so now we're ready to start getting to work. Because I don't have the timing belt, and why that's critical in this build is because for those of you who don't know, 2 liter 16 valves, 1.8 liter 16 valves, and a few other Volkswagen engines are what you call interference engines. So that means if you're not careful, when the piston comes up to top dead center, if the valve timing isn't correct, they're going to basically hit each other, and it's going to cause the valves to bend. So the challenge here is because I'm running 11.8 to 1 compression pistons as well as a motor that's already interference. If I don't have this exactly timed correctly, when I put these two together, I could actually tighten the head bolts down, forcing one of the valves to bend. So obviously that's not a situation that you want to get into. So I want to make sure that before I go to throw everything together, I can time it and hold timing as opposed to trying to figure it out afterwards. I still can, without question, bolt the head on safely enough as long as I know where I'm putting it on together. But once the two rotating assemblies are together, you really do want to make an effort to make sure you time them together so they're not going to change on you and run the issue of interference. Because if the cam moves or the crank moves, you got to make sure you move the one either or in the right direction back to what is top dead center to ensure that you're not going to have an interference situation while building the engine that's going to cause the valves to bend. Because then once you build the engine, throw it in the car, you realize, well, it's not running right, you got some bent valves. Going backwards is a lot of work, so you want to make sure you do it correctly. So in today's episode, we're going to get to work on building the bottom end. I have a ton of parts already available for all of that. We can get the full short block done, and maybe we'll look at seeing if we can throw the head on, but I'm kind of wanting to hold off until I get the belt for that, to be honest with you. But enough talking, let's get to work. Before we start getting into this motor and swapping out parts and changing things around, it really does need a cleanup. I really don't want that dirt or anything falling down into the engine while I'm trying to build it. So let's spend a lot of time cleaning it up first, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we got the engine all cleaned up. Everything's all cleaned up and dry, no more grease. And that's really what we're going for here. I'm gonna take this opportunity now though to preface this entire build. Disclaimer, if you wanna call it that. I know that there's ways to professionally send out your engine to have your engine built. I know we could have hot tanked this. I know we can take it apart and put new bearings in it and you know, knife edge the crank and size all that sort of stuff. But I think if that's what you're expecting of this build and you're expecting of this, you know, engine, I think we've somewhere lost the plot. I want to show you guys as well as, you know, have you come along for the ride to show you that this is all possible to do it at home. So if you've been, you know, delaying your build because you think there's something a shop needs to do or what have you, you know, I just want to show you that it's really not that complicated. You can get out in your garage and do this for yourself. You can build your own engines or put them together. Obviously the word build, you know, means tear down the engine and start from scratch. So we're not necessarily doing that. I'd say we're doing more of a refresh. But the only difference is when we're refreshing it and putting it back together, we're putting it back together differently than it was before. But since this is a low kilometer engine, it doesn't need a full tear down. We're really just doing a refresh on this block. And I know when you're building engines, there's different ways to measure things and different ways to size things. So, you know, I'm going to do it my way. You guys you're welcome to do it your way. I'm not trying to tell anybody this is the right way to do things or the wrong way to do things. And again, this isn't meant to be a how-to video. It's meant to just entertain and motivate you guys to get out in the garage in a project you've probably been waiting on, thinking you need somebody else's help or you need to send it to a shop. I just want to tell you that it's really not that difficult if you get into it. We can easily build this engine to perform. I'm not saying I'm under building the engine, but I'm just saying, you know, we can do this together to build these engines strong enough to give some really good street horsepower, to show you guys that your engines and your cars can easily be taken apart, cleaned up, refreshed, what have you, at home, basic hand tools, no complicated machine tools or anything like that. And you can really come out of it with a strong build engine for the future. So, you know, obviously if I was going to throw boost at this car and I was going to start doing a whole lot of other modifications going for a high horsepower build, I would do things differently. I would take it to machine shops and get tolerances really tightened up, and I would knife edge the crank, and I would, you know, bore out and hone out the cylinders and all those sort of things. But in this case, we're just going for a refresh. We're just showing you we can do this stuff at home. And to be honest, at the end of the day, this engine will give us great power. It's not like we're doing the soft way of building an engine. This engine will perform, and it will give us, you know, great power, great torque, that sort of stuff, especially with 11.8 to 1 compression. This is going to be a performer. So stay tuned, but I just wanted to preface that because I feel like there's a whole bunch of keyboard junkies that are going to hop on there and say, you should do this, you should do that, you should have done it this way, you should have done it that way. I'm not saying I shouldn't or shouldn't have. I'm just saying that we're going to go ahead and do this from a aspect of doing it at home, doing it in your own garage, and having fun while doing it, and really just at the end of the day trying to have produce an engine for low buck. You know, I don't want to have this channel lose control on costs. You know, we're trying to do things on a budget here, and I think a great deal of you guys and, you know, viewers of this channel are doing the same thing or would like to do the same thing. So I'm going to show you that it's really not that challenging. You know, there obviously are some moments in time, but you can find that stuff. You can find reference to them online. You can look at, you know, old shop repair manuals and that sort of stuff. All these things are defined, torque specs and sizings, and you know, if you're a little bit uncomfortable with using some measuring tools to you know, things like gap rings and that kind of stuff, then just, you know, consult the manual, consult the internet, and then, you know, head out to your garage, and if you don't know how to use a certain measuring tool, watch a YouTube video on how to use it. This is, you know, YouTube is a great tool to really get out there and expand your knowledge and learn more things. But at the end of the day, in a day, you know, maybe even 3/4 of a day, you could build an engine from scratch, assemble an engine from scratch if you're just doing a refresh. So you could pull your engine out one day, maybe 2 days, refresh the engine one day, maybe 2 days, and put it back in your car in 1 day, 2 days. So in the length of a week, if you have that much free time, you could easily have a refresh motor in your current streetable car. For me, this is a project car, a car that I'm not going to be daily driving. So taking some minor risks isn't really, you know, running bigger cams or, you know, running it on carbs and that sort of thing, where it might be arguable that carbs aren't really that reliable, but I believe they are. If done right, they are. But I'm not driving this car every day to work, or I'm not doing stuff like that. I'm really just building the car to drive on sunny Sundays and take to car shows and you know, take on some spirited drives and that sort of thing. So anyway, enough of that, enough talking. Let's get back to building the engine, but I just wanted to say all that before you guys start going crazy. So here we go. Okay, so here's a little update. So I got the pistons out, as you can see. Cylinder walls all look really, really good. One of the key things, and I'll show you over here, one of the key things of building an engine or taking an engine apart and refreshing it is being neat. You want to make sure that you keep everything as neat and clean as possible to make sure that you don't have any contaminants when you go to putting the motor back together. Now I know this is the old stuff, but at the end of the day, some of these pieces we're going to be reusing, so it's important to keep that neat. All right, before we get to that though, I do want to paint this block. So before we get to painting this block, there is a little bit of cleaning and machining that I want to do. I want to quickly check the cylinder walls, make sure they're all cleaned up and there's no issues there. And then I want to clean all the gasket surfaces really well. Because again, you're trying to do all this stuff when the engine is dirty. So that way, after you clean it and you paint it, and it's really clean, you can maintain that cleanliness because everything else is done. We're also going to run a stone across the top to really clean up the head surface to make sure there's not any small little warpages. Now with temperature rise and falls of an engine, you will get some distortion, not too much on the block, mostly on the head, but at the same time you want to make sure this surface is perfectly flat, and I'll show you how I do that. Now again, when people build engines, everybody has their own method, but for me, we're going to go ahead and clean up all these gasket surfaces first. We're going to go ahead and clean the head or clean the top of the block, sorry, the deck, and then we're going to go ahead and quickly check and clean the cylinders. Man, do I love this color. Well, I guess I kind of let the cat out of the bag, didn't I? Color of the car right here. It's a cool metallic red, a deep red. It'll look really good. So for now, we're going to peel off all the tape and start getting to work on building the pistons and sizing the rings and getting ready to put them back in. This engine turned out awesome. I'm very, very happy with it. You know, looks aren't much of an engine, but at the same time, you want it to look good in the car. So, I actually ran into my very first very big roadblock with this engine. So, what I was doing is this is a piston ring off my ABA pistons, but I was using my new rings and I was doing ring gapping, which roughly means you stick these in here. I'll show you guys what it's all about. And you have right here what's a ring gap. So you want to make sure that that's the proper size, because when you're doing this, if this ring gap is too big, you're going to have blow by, and if it's too small, as the engine heats up, this little gap will grow together and will actually force it to cause too much friction on the side, on the walls, and it can cause all kinds of damage. So you want to make sure that the hole or the slot is not too big, but again, not too small. So anyway, I was doing that with my new piston rings for my ABF pistons, and everything set up real nice. But the problem was, come over here, when I was building my setup, hopefully you guys can see that. what I was doing was I took apart the ABA piston, and I pulled out the connecting rod, and everything was going good. I had built the ABF piston with the proper rings. Hopefully you guys can see that. Rings are all on there. They're all sized perfectly. And I went to go put my rod in my piston, and the groove, how can I show you guys? The piston ring width on my connecting rod is too wide for these pistons. Now, in most of the research I did to do this, this wasn't a factor. I did call Tectonic Tunings to ask them what I did wrong, and it was definitely my bad. These ABF pistons require this wrist pin section to either be milled down on a mill down to 902 thousandths, or it requires a whole new set of connecting rods made for an ABF. Now, the ABF connecting rods are $700 US. Now, for us Canadian folk who have a really bad exchange rate, that's well over $1,000 for a set of connecting rods. Being the fact that this is a budget channel, I think I need to go to my machine shop and have them mill this distance down so it fits nicely into the piston. Now, unfortunately, this particular issue prevents me from going any farther on this engine build right now, which is incredibly depressing considering the fact that I had gone all the way and thought through this whole thing. Having this issue was definitely something I didn't think about. This is the ABF wrist pin, which I've read a lot about not being properly sized, so all that sort of stuff works for me because this is the ABA connecting rod and this is the wrist pin. It fits really nice, so the 21 mil wrist pin isn't the issue. The issue is the width of the connecting rod wrist pin area, which I never ever considered being a problem. You can see the difference. Let me show you. You can see the difference in the wrist pin cross sections here in these two pistons. So, that being said, now I can't go any farther. I have to deal with this. We have to get these milled down. Now, what I would like to have done by a machine shop is have each side obviously milled down equally, so the total wrist pin width of this connecting rod is 902 thousandths. And I got that number from Tectonic Tuning, and they were a great help over the phone, letting me know that that was my mistake, but I actually said it was my mistake. And they helped me work through a couple ways. They allowed me to either mail these to them and they'd do it for me. They offered obviously the new H-beam rods to be ordered. They were willing to help me out in any which way, but I think because of shipping and I live so far away, as well as the exchange rate, it might make sense for me to locally find a machine shop who will do this for me. So I gotta hop on the phone, and unfortunately I can't move any farther with this job, even though I was completely ready. I got everything set up here. I got the water pump ready to go. I got the oil pump all ready to go in here. All the gaskets ready to build the bottom end. But I have to deal with this now. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the rest of the connecting rods from these pistons. And I'm going to get in contact with the local machine shop and see if I can't get this figured out. Well, things happen. Goes to show you that not everything can go perfectly, especially on YouTube where you're making episodes every week. You're going to run into problems once in a while, and it's going to drag things out. So for now, I've lubed up the engine, wrapped it back up for storage. This really sucks that I can't keep going on it, but for now, I really should just check in with the machine shop first before I leave this to oxidize. But I'd love to hear you guys' comments on the color. I was super stoked with how it turned out. This is going to be the color of the car. Sorry, I should show you. It is a pearlized metallic red, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that on the body down the road. But anyway, guys, leave it in your comments. Tell me what you think about the color, and hopefully you like it. Thanks again for watching. Like I said, until next time, guys, take care. All right, update. So I just got out of a machine shop. I had to go to 4 or 5 different ones to find the right shop that has the right machinery. But they tell me they should be able to have it done in a couple days. So I had to drive, what's seemingly out to the middle of nowhere, but they promised me in a couple days I'll have them back. We're milling them down to 902 thousandths, which is awesome. So it's not as big of an issue as I thought it was going to be. So having a shop local to me that can do that was awesome. So hopefully by next video we'll have them back and we'll be able to keep going on this engine, because I'm really looking forward to it. Things are moving along pretty quickly. Between now and then I'll probably prep and paint a few items that need to go onto the engine, but other than that we are ready to keep going. So until next time guys, thanks very much. Take care.